Well, Benjamin Abtan is the former political advisor to the French Foreign Minister Bernard Kouchner and Justice Minister Christian Taubira. He joins me now live from Yerevan. Thanks so much for speaking to us. We were hearing prior to his speech from some that it would be heard by an unsympathetic French public, as it was just really too little too late. But do you think Macron kind of managed to hit the right note here in acknowledging that he may have hurt people and saying, I hear you now?
Well, he tried to address the issues, which are first social injustice and fiscal injustice, and his personal way of governing. We'll see if it is sufficient enough, but at least he tried to address these both issues, which have created a lot of tension in the country. It's not only about the tax, which triggered the protests. It's not only about fiscal injustice. It's also about his way of governing, very centralized, very centered for himself. He announced all the measures you spoke of, but he also announced the fact that he will work much more with local authorities in order to push for a change in the institutions, to make it more democratic and to make it for the people more heard. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, let's see how it goes. Let me ask you this, though. Politicians aside, can France afford the kind of reforms these protesters want?
Well, I think France could not afford to have more protests like that, and especially to have more violence, as was shown in the streets of Paris and other streets.
But the budget is the budget.
There was a need. The budget is a budget, but you cannot have a budget if you lose more because of this protest. You know, the budget was becoming smaller and smaller because of the protest, because there will be less tax incomes. So, in fact, there was a fact which was not possible to escape, and the president had to face it. It will create problems. It will create more problems for the next social and fiscal choices. But the tension was very high in France, very high, not very clear about what would be, the request by the protesters. The violence was very high. The willingness by some to reach dead people, to reach destruction was also very high. And it is very important for society to stick together. And there was a need to address that.
Okay, so what about the protests to come? I mean, another student demonstration, as far as we know, has been planned. I mean, can Macron survive all of this?
You know, the Constitution makes it like very easy for a president to stay until the end of his term. I think there is no doubt about that. But there is high doubt about how he will perform for the next elections, especially the next European elections in May next year. You speak about protest, which is like something very common in France, and it was very uncommon that there was no protest since the election of Macron. So in a way, things are coming back as usual about the protests. Now is what are going to be the best programs which are going to win. And unfortunately, the ones who have won most in the survey so far are the populists, are the far right, and the far left also. So this will create a political situation which will be more complicated in terms of democracy in the coming months. But the battle is there, and society expresses itself. The right to protest is a constitutional right, which is protected. People are protesting, people will be voting. But yeah, there is now going back to the political debate.
Okay, Benjamin Abtan, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us from Yerevan.